Hey y'all, it's Bart. Welcome back to Soccer for Us. And on this episode, we are talking about back. That's right. The U.S. men's national team will be back at the FIFA World Cup for the first time in 8 years, 8 long, frustrating years. It is quite exciting to be able to talk about it in this fashion. And to help me break down these final 3 matches that the U.S. played, I'm going to bring on a special guest, someone that I have called out of the bullpen because my other 2 people that I normally would record these with were on spring break. That's just what happens when you are friends with people who have kids, I should say. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you to follow Soccer for Us on Twitter at Soccer for Us Pod. Follow Soccer Down Here on Twitter, as well as subscribe on whatever podcatcher you are listening right now to Soccer Down Here. That way you get every episode of Soccer for Us, as well as every episode of the daily Soccer Down Here show and the other content they put out. I just recently, last week, went on with John and Jason and Nick for a Salty Takeaways post-World Cup draw edition. So make sure you go and subscribe to Soccer Down Here for all of that content. Also, you can support the podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/soccerforuspod. You can buy me a coffee or a beer, whichever you want to think it is. And that'll help me be able to continue to put out these shows and, do so in a manner that is hopefully pleasing to your ears. And also, before we get into talk about the U.S. men's national team, I do want to note that the U.S. women play a couple of friendlies coming up in April. You have them playing Uzbekistan on Saturday, April 9th at 5:30, and then on Tuesday, April 12th at 7, again against Uzbekistan. Not exactly the strongest opponent for the U.S. women's national team, but an opponent nonetheless to help them prepare for this summer's Concacaf Women's Championship. Obviously, that is an important tournament for the women because that will determine World Cup qualifying, Olympic qualifying, especially Olympic qualifying, but it goes into so many other things as well. So these 2 games against Uzbekistan might go a little bit better to preparing the women for that tournament than some people might want to think. But give them a watch. Make sure that you are supporting the women as well as we celebrate the men returning to the World Cup. To talk about these final 3 matches the USMNT played in Concacaf World Cup qualifying, I am pleased to welcome to the Soccer for Us podcast the king of grassroots soccer, a coach, a referee, a league director, and the father of the cutest soccer player on the internet. It's Joey Logan. Joey, thanks for joining me on this episode.
Thanks for having me, Bart.
We are recording about a week after the United States secured qualification to Qatar 2022. How has your life improved? I know it's just such a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it's just a relief. I mean, the U.S. is back in the World Cup. It was really devastating to watch the last cycle and not have your team there and all the nonsense of choose Mexico or choose this team. I was not choosing any other team. I was strictly watching it as a fan, which was kind of nice as well. I didn't have any skin in the game, but it was definitely heartbreaking to not see my own country playing on the soccer pitch.
It will be nice. I mean, as you said, it's a World Cup. I'm going to watch it regardless. I mean, I still watch the Champions League, and I'm an Arsenal fan. We haven't sniffed it for a few years. So it's not that I'm not going to watch, but, man, it is nice to have a team to actually root for. It's nice that the U.S. is back in the World Cup, and we get to watch the red, white, and blue play in Qatar this November. We barely got there. Let's be real honest, right? We got a draw against Mexico, a win against Panama, and a 2-0 loss at Costa Rica. The Yanks did just enough to snag one of the 3 automatic tickets to Qatar that CONCACAF had to offer. How do you feel about this past window? I mean, we got the job done, right?
Yeah, I really felt like that first match was critical. Really needed a result versus Mexico and really needed to put those 2 goals away. Christian Pulisic misses a sitter and PFOC misses an even bigger sitter after a great cushion from Gio Reyna. But, yeah, you got the job done. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't exciting except for the second game. But ultimately, you're back in the World Cup, and that was the goal, and you achieved that goal.
I mean, the goal achieved. I think I was a little surprised that we came out so strongly against Mexico with what I would argue was the best lineup. And to then destroy Panama the way we did, a little fortunate, but most of all, I think it was a good performance from the U.S., or a good result anyway. That Costa Rica match, I'm still just not sure what to make of it. Maybe you'll convince me that it was totally not anything to worry about, and we should not have to think about the fact that we lost 2-0 to Costa Rica and still can't win in San Jose. But I don't know. I was glad, but at the same time, I was like, man, that kind of wasn't fun to watch that second half. But hey, we did it. We're into the World Cup, and we have a lot to talk about from these past 3 windows. So let's dive into this window. Obviously, again, it was a draw against Mexico, a win against Panama, and a 2-0 loss at Costa Rica. This 0-0 loss at Mexico in El Azteca was quite a bit of a fascinating turn of events for the U.S. men's national team. I don't think anyone expected Berhalter to really rotate against Mexico. I think there were some people who thought maybe he'll take a B squad into that match. I don't think that was ever really his intention. Let's talk about that Mexico game, though. A 0-0 draw at Azteca. You had a starting lineup that, for me, was probably about the strongest lineup you could have put out if you were Berhalter. You had Stefan in goal, Yedlin, Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, and Anthony Robinson across the back. Your midfield trio was Tyler Adams, Yunus Musa, and maybe a little surprised Kellen Acosta. Your front 3 being Tim Weah, Ricardo Pepi, and Christian Pulisic. I think that was about as strong as you were going to see, given the players that were called up. Were you shocked when Berhalter came out with such a strong lineup?
Not at all. I mean, you got to go into Mexico, and you have to get something. You have to get at least a draw to set yourself up. And honestly, we'll talk about it a little bit, but they should have won the game. I mean, 2 just perfect chances. You just can't get any better. And those are the type of things. But I think with the Azteca, there's always an aura about it. Like, it's just you go in there, there's this mystique, there's just this history there that you just go in there, and it's somewhat intimidating. But I really felt that the U.S. is on the front foot for the most part. Mexico just kind of sat back and didn't really want to play, and they just kind of, passed it around but didn't really go forward. Looks like they're trying to get it to Raul Jimenez, and him just, drop off the ball and then make a run. That seemed to be their offense, and it was interesting to watch because I'm used to seeing a Mexico team that's a little more dynamic, a little more fast-paced, and I guess, Chucky Lozano, I remember if he played or not. I don't know if he was available. Chucky Lozano didn't really have a great game. Nobody really had a great game. It was really disappointing to see from the Mexican standpoint that you didn't have a back-and-forth kind of upscale battle, upspeed battle. It was interesting for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think Mexico took this game very seriously, but it was the U.S. who seemed more, especially at the beginning, it seemed like the U.S. was definitely on the front foot. Seemed like we were more aggressive with the way that we were trying to play. We were definitely trying to go forward more often. I do think that as just a general setup, the U.S. is more inclined to do that. But I'm with you. It was insane to me to see the U.S. really taking it to the Mexican national team in El Azteca. I personally think this was the best performance we've had there. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I do think so. Obviously, the chances they were in, it would have definitely been the best performance. But overall, I thought it was they seemed to control the pace. They seemed to deal with the nonsense well, the fouling and all that nonsense. I didn't see any choking, which was a shocker.
Well, Weston McKennie wasn't out there, so
McKennie wasn't out there. So, all that other nonsense, it really came out. And the announcer said it kind of too as well. Pulisic was on a different level the first 2 games. I'd never seen that kind of demeanor from him, I guess, except for his Chelsea days in Champions League. He just took it upon himself to say, I'm going to win this game, or I'm going to do everything in my power to do so. And while he didn't score, I think he did a lot of good things. Not just him, Tim Weah. I love Tim Weah. I really hope that he gets that starting role on the right. I'm not a big fan of Paul Oriola, but he's going to be in the mix. But Tim Weah and Christian Pulisic, for me, whoever they're flanking the striker, that's the best combination, in my opinion, at least for the front 3. But yeah, it was – I felt, U.S. dominated, I think, for the most part. There were a couple moments, they had some lapses in defense, and that just came from the structure of the game and the way it was going. And obviously, set pieces continue to be a bugaboo for our team, and hopefully they can correct that main thing because there's going to be a lot of set-piece opportunities, both for and against them. You just have to defend well. I mean, you just can't let set pieces drag you down.
Yeah, I thought that it was frustrating to me because we had opportunities on set pieces and we never really capitalized. We even had Kellen Costa, who I think most people would agree was one of the better free kick takers we've seen for the U.S., especially during this like calendar year, if you will, or at least the qualification cycle. And it was just disappointing that we still don't seem to be a team that can actually create a real opportunity off a set piece. And you would think that this team would be able to. I mean, you look at the lineup we had. I mean, Zimmerman, amazing on set pieces. Miles, a very tall, strong presence. You still had Tim Weah, who is very good in the box. Yunus Musa, who's also good at getting on the end of things. And Ricardo Pepi, who's another tall target. So it's not like we didn't have anyone to put the ball into. It's just really frustrating that we're not able to create anything on set pieces. And I personally can't figure out what it is other than the delivery is just not good.
Yeah, the delivery is the key to any set piece. The common rule of thumb is you got to beat the first man. There's several times where you see the ball just go low and it goes to the first man and nothing happens when that. The way to make something happen is it has to go between the penalty spot and the top of the six. That's called the danger zone. The keeper is not going to come out and get it. If he does, he's an idiot because he's going to miss it. It's going to deflect off somebody. It's going to fall to somebody. That's your danger spot right there. And you've got to get creative into putting that ball, swinging away from the keeper, put it right there. And hopefully you have somebody who either A, gets a head on it or it falls down and just, you get a free shot on goal on the backside. But yeah, just you got to beat the first man. You can't have any set piece success when you can't beat the first man. That's number one. You have to.
It just is a little mystifying to me that we don't have two guys past, Gio Reyna, maybe, who can hit a set piece consistently. And as you said, just put it into at least some sort of it doesn't have to be pinpoint accuracy, but just put it somewhere between the six and the penalty spot, put it somewhere, 8 to 12 yards out from goal even. And, it's not like that's asking a whole lot. You're talking 4 to 6 yards that you have to put it in there. Just find some head in there, find some area in there. And we just are not able to do that. But we created chances through the run of play, which against Mexico is something that up until 2021 was something that the U.S. struggled to do. I mean, I think back to that game in November, we bossed them at home. The possession stats and all that didn't exactly favor the U.S. in this game, but we created more chances through the run of play, and I think we could have won. I mean, whose miss was worse, though, Pulisic or Pifak?
I really think it was Pifak because Claudio put it on a platter. I mean, you just saw the ball go up. I think it was from Musa or Tyler Adams, and it's just right there. And Gio just cushions it, and all you have to do is just put it down on the ground and put it in the net. Like, I just don't understand how a professional soccer player missed that set.
I don't understand. He fell down after it. Like, what? Yeah. It was like he was not set. I don't get it. I'm still, like, I've replayed it in my mind multiple times. I don't understand how he not just missed, but missed, like, almost out for a throw-in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Pulisic one was bad enough, but I think that he was a little hurried on it. Like, he felt like the defender was behind him. He was trying, I think it was even a little bit behind him, so he was trying to drag his momentum back to try to get behind the ball, and it just went away from him. But I think the other one was clear cut inside the six. I mean, you've got to put that away. There's just no excuse, unfortunately, for the second one.
Yeah.
And he'll get another chance, and hopefully he'll put it away if he gets that chance. I'm hoping he does, but. Yeah, that was the second one was more unfortunate.
Well, we still got a 0-0 draw. I mean, I think we deserved a goal, but I think the draw at the end of it was a very good result and set us up for success throughout the rest of the window. We go into Panama, we go to Orlando to play Panama, I should say. And, I don't know if this game necessarily, the scoreline 5-1 felt a bit unfair to Panama. But this is one of those games where the XG gods finally smile on you. And I do want to share a little bit. I don't know if you saw this, but on Twitter, there was but a photo, a screenshot, I think it was, of Greg Berhalter talking to the team ahead of camp. And it had the table of qualifying, but then it had the XG table. And it showed the U.S. and the XG that they had created throughout World Cup qualifying, which again, I think most people understand XG is not a great stat for game to game, but it is a good stat to look at as a cumulative kind of aggregate, if you will. The U.S. was the best XG creator of anyone in Concacaf. 18.1 going into the window, 18.1 expected goals, which was almost a full 3 points higher than Canada. This game felt like finally those expected goals, the big chances we created, found the back of the net. Obviously, two of those coming from a penalty kick. But I felt like the Panama game was all of the frustrating offensive problems we've had in qualifying actually being a little reversed, and we were finally just able to find the back of the net.
Yeah, I think it started with obviously the VAR review, which I totally agree with. I mean, I don't know what Godoy is thinking. Is it Godoy? What's his name?
Yeah, Godoy. Yeah, we've got two referees on this episode
clearly,
right now, so we'll break down a referee decision.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly pulls him down. I don't understand what his argument is, and unfortunately for us, we got the benefit now of VAR when initially in some qualifying games it said no VAR. Then all of a sudden, oh, VAR is back, and now we get to use it. This is the type of things that can change a game, and you're always being watched now. You just got to know. But anyway, so you get the gift, and then you get another gift later on, basically for almost the same exact thing, and he has nothing to be. He can't argue it either way. The second one probably was a little more, not so much, but the first one was definite. But yeah, you get the 2 goals, and you're feeling good about yourself. And you get a third, and then by the time you get to 4, okay, it's pretty much over now. And yeah, the XG. I mean, you think to other times where the U.S. had numerous chances. They dominate the game. They score a goal early, and then they're just riding it. They could have bit 2 or 3 more in, and then they get that late 75th minute plus goal against them, and it just takes the wind out of your sails. And numerous times just drop points in the first part of the qualifying, and that's the kind of stuff that can come back to bite you. Thankfully, it didn't this time. But yeah, definitely good to see 3+ goals. Anytime you score 3 goals in a match, that's a good match for the most part. You should be winning a match when you're scoring 3 or more goals. 5 was just icing on the cake, and unfortunate to not get a shutout either. But again, it wasn't a pretty performance, but when you're gifted 2 goals and you score 2 more and you're just riding it out, I'll take that any day.
Yeah, I'll get into a little bit of the nuances of the approaches, but the starting lineup, this weirdly was the most, I think, rotated, if you will, starting lineup of the window. You had, again, Stefan in goal, but you had a back line of Shaq Moore coming in because Yedlin gets a yellow card. He's suspended. Reggie Cannon had COVID. Like, Shaq Moore gets on a plane 2 days before the match to come to Florida. He played all right. Zimmerman and Miles in the center back duo. Jedi obviously on the left, and your middle 3, you had Adams and Musa again returning, but then Luca De La Torre sliding in for Kellen Costa, which I don't think is necessarily a rotated spot. I think that was actually the strongest midfield that you could have put out this window, but I'm sure Greg feels a little differently. And your front 3 of Areola, Ferreira, and Pulisic. Now, I personally would have started Areola in the Mexico match because I think he does things that you would want to do against Mexico, which is hustle, press, defend up high. I mean, he's a very good speedy work rate winger, but he actually did that really well against Panama in a team that, again, to talk a little bit about the approaches, Panama had to get a result from this match. They weren't going to be able to just sit back and defend. And we knew from playing them that they're not necessarily a bunkering team, but they are a defense-first team. They came out trying to dictate the tempo. And I actually think that played in the U.S.'s hands because we were able to turn the ball over and get chances going forward. I know we didn't necessarily score off a lot of them at the beginning, but it seemed like Panama maybe took the wrong approach of coming out so hot. Maybe they should have weathered the U.S.'s storm at the beginning before trying to make their own run. What did you feel at the beginning of this match, really that first half, how it played out?
Yeah, absolutely. Panama, like you said, just came out and tried to dictate the pace and tried to create things happening. And up until the penalty, they were trying to find success. And I think they found some areas with some success. And the penalty just kind of kind of takes you back. Like, okay, let's get back into it. Then you get to 2-0, and again, you get 3 and 4 and all that. The U.S. really the high press. I mean, Ariola was pressing, Ferreira was pressing, everybody was pressing and trying to get the ball back. And I really liked that style because the U.S. needed a result too. So they
Yeah.
felt like we have to take the game to them. So both teams needed a result. And Panama, I think necessarily bunkered at the wrong times or didn't press the right times. But I think the penalty ultimately changed kind of the flow of the game because it felt like they were in tempo, they were in control, and U.S. was kind of frantic. And then once they got a penalty, U.S. is able to push a little bit higher. They're able to high press, and Panama is trying not to make a mistake, and they unfortunately make another one. They make another one. They make several mistakes by trying to hold it. So it was very interesting this first 15 minutes or so, and then it just unraveled after the penalty. But definitely, Ariola, I definitely agree. Like, while I don't particularly care for him, he does work his butt off. I mean, he's always up there. He's in your face. The flicks and tricks he tries to do. I mean, I like what he brings to the table. Just between him and Weah, I prefer Weah over Ariola.
Absolutely.
Jesus Ferreira as well. Ferreira really took, I think, advantage of his opportunity. While he didn't, did he score a goal? Did he not score a goal?
He got the was that the fourth goal? I forget the timeline at this point.
Had the goal and really deserved that and probably deserved another two as well. I mean, I think he really took advantage of the opportunity. Ricardo Pepi was, unsatisfying in the first game. Not really to his fault. I mean, I just don't think he was getting the service that he needed. Mexico seemed to really press him and just kind of say, we're going to deny Pepi and make you play through Pulisic and make you play through Weah. But Ferreira really did well. Like you said, Luca De La Torre. I love Luca De La Torre. I really wish that he would kind of solidify himself a little more. Like, he had probably his best game in that Panama game, whereas other games, he's been okay. He's a solid work rate, but he just doesn't do anything flashy. He doesn't make you, oh, wow. He doesn't do the Claudio Reyna or the Gio Reyna kind of stuff. But he's definitely a solid player. I think that was his best game over the course of the entire qualifying process. Those three players really stood out in the
I think they were the right three for that Panama game when I think about it. And obviously this is looking in hindsight, but it was a front three that was not afraid to attack Panama when they had the ball in the back, but also a front three that was able to create through transition, right? Ferreira's a player who's good with the ball at his feet. Ariola is a very direct, pacey player who shockingly, now that he's not playing for DC United, which I think plays bumper cars, he's playing at FC Dallas and is actually playing real soccer and has surprisingly started looking like he knows how to play soccer again. Weird how that works out. And then Pulisic, who's obviously very good dribbling. It really did end up being a very – not that granted, I think Tim Weah would have been just as effective as Ariola. But when you look at those three, they were very effective against Panama.
Absolutely.
This is kind of the case, too, of performance versus result. And obviously, in World Cup qualifying, result matters more than performance. You said it. It wasn't the best game we've ever played. It certainly wasn't a pretty win. The goals were pretty. Obviously, Pulisic's last goal was gorgeous. But even the goal that Ariola scored was a very good, well-worked goal. Granted, Pulisic got destroyed on a foul, and credit to the referee for allowing the advantage there. But Ferreira's goal was also, it wasn't necessarily a pretty goal because it was kind of a rebound off of some deflections, but the build-up to everything seemed pretty good. It was nice to see the U.S. just get balls in the back of the net.
Absolutely. I mean, you love to score goals. That's what the sport of soccer is all about. You want to see goals, like the 1-1 draws, the 0-0 draws. It can be exciting, but ultimately the fans want to see goals. And just to see, again, 5 goals, after so long of missed opportunities and drop points, just to get a relief. And then, again, setting yourself up for that last match, you just knew that, okay, we've put ourselves in good position, that we just need a total collapse to not go through. Pretty much we're through right now. Just have to finish the job. They did so sort of in Costa Rica. But love goals. It doesn't matter if it's an ugly goal, a pretty goal, a flashy goal. Anytime it goes in the back of the net, I still scream and holler as loud as if it's the first time I've ever seen a goal. If you ever sat next to me in a Atlanta United game or anywhere else, you know that I celebrate pretty loud. So.
Well, I will say that it was pretty much a party that second half in Orlando. The first half, we got goals in the 17th, 23rd, 27th, and 45th minute. So, even after that third goal, we were in party mode. But going into the half, 4-0 up, everything was great. And then getting a fifth from Pulisic. Now, here's the question. Is that the greatest goal the U.S. has ever scored. I mean, in terms of like pure quality, because I have a couple that I think of that might be a little bit better, but that was a pretty darn good goal by Pulisic.
Yeah, I think there's some better goals that are in terms of quality for sure. I think maybe if you're talking about in terms of significance, we're kind of like, nailing
Oh,
the
it's
coffin.
definitely not as it's definitely not
I
as
think that's
significant
the
as
case. There's definitely some really nice goals over the course of the past few years, even and even in some in World Cup. Think about the fastest goal ever scored. What was that,
oh, that was a beauty.
2014
Yeah.
Cup? I mean, I just sat down and 30 seconds in or whatever we score, that was incredible. Just some other goals that a little more pretty, but definitely significance-wise, it was, like I said, for me, the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
To kind of put Panama away and just say, okay, we just got to ride it out for 60, 70 minutes. But it is up there, and Pulisic is known for those kind of goals. I mean, he came in the previous game, or was it November qualifying, I think, and he literally comes off the bench and they put the ball in the back of the net. And it's just like he's made for the moment, and he's definitely taken that role. It seems a lot better. It seemed like after the last debacle, I think Christian Pulisic has had to rebuild himself, so to speak, where his image was tarnished. He said, "Okay, I need to make a move." Went from BVB, went to Chelsea, a little bit more of a bigger market. He's definitely revitalized, I guess revitalized is the best word. Reversed his career, and he's definitely in the top, at least of Concacaf. I'm not going to say the world, but of Concacaf, he's one of the top 5 players for sure, and continues to do so.
Yeah, this was definitely that knockout round Pulisic that we saw in this window, and he backed it up with 3 goals today, 3 goals in this game against Panama. That last one, basically all but assured the U.S. was going to the World Cup. That Costa Rica match felt more like a formality than anything. U.S. does lose 2-0 to Costa Rica down in San Jose. We still have not won there, but I thought that this matchup was, especially when the lineup came out, the fact that we made it to halftime 0-0, I thought at that point I was very, very assured that we were going through. Obviously, the 2 goals, my anxiety spiked. But, this lineup of Stefan, Yedlin, Walker, Miles in the back, Jedi in the back, and then the middle 3 of that same game, Adams, Musa, Costa, and then the front 3 from the first game, Weah, Pepe, and Pulisic. So basically the same lineup you saw against Mexico. It's not a surprise, and this is just how I took the game. We started off trying to play soccer pretty well, and I thought that we actually created some good chances in the first half. But you could tell these guys were a little tired, and you could tell they faded, especially in that second half. And I think that's why Costa Rica was able to find the goals that they did. We'll talk about the second one they scored because that was a problem, and we need to be aware of it. But, I thought this team played pretty well for acknowledging how tired they were.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was surprised he didn't rotate more heavily because, like you said, just played 2 really grueling matches, a 0-0 draw versus Mexico, and not while grueling against Panama. I mean, you won 5-1, but it still was a difficult match. It wasn't an easy match to get to that result. You were gifted 2 goals. So, again, and again, you don't need the result. You just need a draw. So you could have rotated, even earlier. You could have, brought in somebody at halftime or in the first half, and I don't think that – I'm not sure why, but yeah, definitely the tired legs definitely didn't help. You could see it at the end. That's how, the one goal happens, and the other one's a lapse of concentration from Stefan, and that's unfortunate. But again, it's the mentality and the tiredness from the past 2 games, and like you said, it was just a formality for that game. I can't remember the term for it, but when both teams just need a result and they kind of just pass it around and don't really do much, it was kind of happens in the World Cup in that third game, and both like, okay, if we both get a point, we both go through, so let's help each other out, not to do anything to damage that. But,
Costa Rica, I'm not saying that they were giving up. I don't think that was what they had done, but I think you understand that, hey, we have to win 6-0. That's just an unlikely thing against the United States. It just is. And Costa Rica is a very good team and have played very well to close out this qualifying, but like 6-0 is just that's an almost impossible score line when you're talking about, especially these 2 teams.
I think, like you said, it was really unfair to the United States. They did actually have some really good chances. It's just we have Navas between the pipes. I mean, he's just a phenomenal goalkeeper, and he's always going to make those stunning saves and those unstoppable, unbelievable saves he did. I think that obviously after the first half, I think Costa Rica was a little disappointed They're like, we're in front of our home crowd. We've got to get a result here. And even though,
Yes.
we may not go to the third spot, we may not get 6. Let's get something. And then, the exuberation, which I just kind of laughed at. But I mean, they wanted a goal so badly. And once it happened, you just saw the entire bench just running the field. And for me, like, not from my perspective as my team, but seeing it as a soccer fan, like that's what the game's about, is just entertainment and just the exuberation of, scoring in front of your home fans, your home stadium.
Yeah.
Then to get the second one, just the release of their tension from the previous, and they're still going to get a chance to go through. They play New Zealand, I think, for the playoff. So,
Yep.
and I think that Costa Rica and most CONCACAF teams, they just are difficult. They just have, that difficult play. They're a little more physical than other teams. The
Yep.
European teams aren't as physical, a little more flash, a little more pizzazz. The CONCACAF team's just rough and tough, and that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to go up against whoever and just say, we're just going to ride you down and hopefully get a goal out of it.
So I'm glad you bring that up, because it reminds me of when I'm refereeing, and I'll take so you referee, I referee, you've refereed high level, I've refereed pretty high level for youth matches. When you get some of the, in Georgia, we have ECNL, which is like top level. That's national league for everyone who's not aware. Then you have SCCL, which is Southeastern Clubs Championship League. I hate that name, but whatever. So that's like your second level. And then you get into actual like Georgia soccer travel ball. And a lot of those players who play in the lower SCCL and the Georgia like select league, they're pretty good. They're very good soccer players. Like, no one can say like they don't know what they're doing. They played for a very long time. They're very skilled, but they're very, very physical, because they're not quite at the level tactically or technically to compete with those skills. But when I referee ECNL, I call fouls, a lot of fouls, but most of the fouls are because, someone was a little late, or, some guy did a move and that guy was going by him. So that's more of a tactical foul. Those lower level games, even at a very, what I would consider a high level, but those lower level games in SCCL and Select are a lot more physical. And I kind of liken that to like when people talk about European qualification, it's like, of course it's hard. Everyone's good, right? Of course ECNL is hard. Everyone's good. But they're there to try to play the game a little bit more. CONCACAF oftentimes is not about playing the sport of soccer. It's about playing mind games. It's about trying to out-physical your opponent. And Costa Rica does that really well, especially to the United States and especially in San Jose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good that you bring up ECNL and SCCL. Honestly, in those matches, I don't call many fouls, and I tell them, look, we're going to play through the contact. There's going to be minimal contact. There's going to be little stuff here and there, little clips, little pulls and stuff. Like, keep playing. Like, let's keep the flow of the game. But like you said, get down to the Georgia soccer levels. You're talking about probably fourth or fifth tier in terms of the different tiers of players. Fourth or fifth, and then it's a dogfight. It's just trying to scrap and get every ball and go up for every header and go into every tackle as hard as you can. And it's just really rough and tough. I compare it to kind of like high school. High school is the same way.
It's high school might be a better allegory, because you have guys who will play ECNL and they have to go down to play high school, right? So like Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams, they're ECNL players, right? But then they got to go play high school ball, which is like CONCACAF, right? And it's just like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's definitely a different mentality, but I like that kind of identity of all CONCACAF teams. That's what I think makes the CONCACAF so great, is that any day, anybody can beat anybody. Obviously, you saw that some in Europe with was it North Macedonia beating Italy, which was insane. But it doesn't happen that often. Usually, you have an England versus Slovenia or whatever their group is, and it's like, okay, this is probably going to be a 2-0, 3-0 result, maybe a 3-1 result. But in CONCACAF, anywhere you go, doesn't matter any day. The conditions can suck. The lighting can suck. Like
there can be standing water on the field sometimes.
Like, he just expects whenever he goes somewhere just for something to happen. Like the fire alarm goes off, or they get to the hotel and like there's flooding or something. All the like weird off the field stuff that you just don't account for. That doesn't happen in Europe. Like, you get to a nice 5-star hotel, you have a nice breakfast in the morning, you go to a nice manicured field. It's really kind of prissy, to be honest, in European soccer. It is not rough and tough like CONCACAF. I've seen better pitches in youth soccer than I have some in CONCACAF. I mean, some of those
Yes.
pitches are atrocious, but you still have to play the game, and that's what I love about it. It's just so unique. Probably the most other unique would be obviously South American. I mean, it's very similar
Ooh,
in that
yeah.
aspect where teams are rough and tough and just crazy fans and everything like that. Those are the two that really separate themselves from Europe and Asia and everything like that as well.
Yeah, it was even longer this time. Normally for the final round of qualifying, at least, we're in the hexagonal. So we only have 10 matches. This one we added a couple teams. So now we have 14 matches. And it was a long grind. I mean, 3 matches per window. A lot of guys had to come in and give their all and then, go back and play club after playing a club match. It was a very long grind. But I do, before we move on to the overall takes, we got to talk about Zach Stefan in this game against Costa Rica. The first goal, kind of maybe his fault. I know as a goalkeeper, I will say that he probably should have saved that. But it's a little bit like the Pulisic miss, if you will, where probably should have scored it. But, sometimes it just doesn't happen. That second goal was Zach Stefan's fault a lot. Does it concern you that Zach Stefan kind of has this pattern of coming to claim crosses and not claiming them? Sometimes he has the ability to make some great saves, but oftentimes doesn't seem to really make saves that it doesn't feel like he makes unreal saves that like keep goals out, right? It seems like a lot of times he lets in goals that probably another keeper, maybe a keeper in the U.S. pool, could have kept out. How are you feeling about that right now?
Yeah, I think it's form, to be honest. Obviously Zach Stefan's still at Man City. He's not getting the games. He's not getting the reps. And I hate to compare, to our goalkeeper at United, but Guzan sometimes does the same thing. He comes and he flails at it, and it just goes over his head, and we get a crap goal, so to speak. And yeah, it does concern, but I think that I don't think that these 3 keepers were the 3 top choice goalkeepers. I think that hopefully the pool will go back and say, okay, who do we need as 3 solid goalkeepers that we can bring? Obviously, I know Sean Johnson personally, went to my high school. Usually a big fan of Sean Johnson, but he's sometimes does that as well. Horvath, I really wish
he's good
he
at
would have
giving up a
got.
blunder, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And Horvath, I really wish he would have got an opportunity just to get in between the pipes, just to show what he can do.
Yeah.
I think he had a COVID situation as well, or sickness, and he just was dropped, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so there's other players I think in the pool that hopefully will get their chance, and I think that over the course of the next 4 or 5 months before the actual World Cup selection, that they're gonna rotate 6 or 7 goalkeepers and say, okay, these are the best 3 that we have to take with us. We can't have any mistakes, and that's going to be a key factor because you can't have mistakes in the World Cup. You look at
not like the way that
happened to
Stefan just
England,
did.
happened to Ben Foster. Ben Foster, I mean, muffs a freaking easy save, and the goal goes in, and U.S. I think end up going through on that. And the other goalkeepers just just unreal circumstances, unreal things that happen. As a goalkeeper, you just cannot allow that to happen. So hopefully, maybe it's a refocus too as well. Maybe he realizes, I need to refocus. I need to go harder in training. I need to try to push Ederson for more minutes. I need to get into, whatever cup they have coming up. I need to try to get into this game. Say, hey, Pep, I need some minutes. Just some way to get some more minutes. That's for every goalkeeper. I mean, unless you're the number 1 goalkeeper at your club, unfortunately, you're sitting on the bench day after day after day, and it's very hard to get motivated. It's very hard to stay sharp. You go to training, you go home. You go to training, you go home. You look at the team sheet, you're not on there. So yeah, it's just minutes. He just needs to get in and get sharp, which hopefully he will. And hopefully, like I said, 6 to 7 goalkeepers out of the pool, and they'll pick the best 3 that are in form as well.
I think my issue is I'm not sure that we have any better goalkeepers right now. I think that there are 5 goalkeepers, maybe 4 to 5, that are pretty close. You have Stefan and Turner, obviously preferred. Stefan obviously very preferred in Berhalter's eyes. Then you have Horvath. Then you have Johnson. Gaga Slonina's in there, the youngster from Chicago. I don't know if he's quite ready yet, and there are some glaring problems with his game. Not necessarily from a goalkeeping perspective, but the kid does need to be able to kick the ball past midfield more consistently.
Absolutely.
I just don't know if there's a guy who's going to be better. You could talk about David Ochoa, who, obviously chose to play for Mexico. I don't know if he would necessarily unseat any of these guys. I just don't know if we have anyone who can be better. And so to me, the solution is, and I know you will love to talk about Manchester City's transfer policies and goings-ons, but it seems like Stefan needs to ask for a loan out for the next season to start. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And I'm worried about that as Matt Turner's coming to Arsenal to basically do the same thing. I don't think he's beating out Aaron Ramsdale for the starting job.
Definitely not.
Ramsdale has won that job for a lot of reasons. Sean Johnson is the only one who's starting week in and week out. Horvath hasn't secured a starting spot, even though he played for a little bit. Like I said, Slonina's good, but he's 18, 19 years old. He still has some problems. He might be getting a transfer this summer. Who knows? The goalkeeping position does still unsettle me.
Yeah, unfortunately, like you said, we haven't had a clear number one come out, and that Turner's going the same situation. Yeah, you just have to get minutes. Hopefully Stefan can make that trade request or make that loan request and say, hey, I'd really like to play some more. Can you send me to a team in the Premier League, preferably? If not, can I go down to the Championship, or even go abroad? Can I go to Germany? Can I go somewhere where I'm going to get a number one spot and I can play consistently? Because while I like being at the club and everything like that, I'm sitting behind one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and he's not gonna unseat him any soon unless Ederson, God forbid, has a bad injury, which you never want for anybody. And Ramsdale, same thing at Arsenal. He's not going anywhere anytime soon either. So Turner's going to sit in the bench and maybe get in for a low-level, Open Cup game or like Open Cup, FA Cup game, or
it is Open Cup season
or whatever. Open Cup was wild last night. I don't know if you watched it. It was.
I watched some.
The games are rolling in. It's just gonna. Yeah, it's going to be a gut check for Greg Berhalter for sure to see who he trusts the most and who's the most informed.
I think the problem is he trusts Stefan, and I don't think Stefan's the best choice, but that's a conversation for another episode. Let's talk about this window as a whole, just these three matches. I do think it's interesting that Berhalter put all of his eggs in the Mexico basket compared to the Costa Rica basket, right? I think he saw the opportunity to take it to Mexico, and we ended up getting a result, and that meant that the Panama match, though super important, we still had to win, wasn't as like, oh crap, all the pressure is on this match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You knew what you had to do. You had to get at least 4 points.
Yeah.
At worst, you maybe could have gotten 3, which you didn't want to put yourself in the situation. At best, you could have gotten probably 6 or 7. At the very best, you get 9, and you maybe win the group. But that was very unlikely with the matches they had and locations they had to go to. 2 away games and 1 home game. Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica. Just probably the 3 toughest opponents, obviously, besides Canada, in the octagon.
Yeah, this was absolutely the toughest window we had.
Yeah, so again, you get the result the first game, you're like, okay, you just got to win the next one. And I thought the Panama game was going to be closer than it was. I thought it was going to be an edgy 2-1, 3-2 kind of game, but it just kind of opened up, and then you just felt that sigh of relief. You're like, okay, we're in, pending the Costa Rica game. But yeah, he definitely, I appreciate Greg for going in on the first game because it's a rivalry game. It's the Azteca. Your players are coming back. They're ready to raring to go. You've got to get a result at Azteca. You just can't leave Azteca and not get a result. And thankfully they did. And again, that led into the Panama game. And again, you're at home. Hate to say this about Orlando, but Orlando seems to be the best place to play for qualifying right now because they've gotten so many points and had so many dramatic moments.
I've been there for both of them. We got a 4-0 win and a 5-1 win, both against Panama, by the way.
It's something about that stadium. It finally gets filled and suddenly goals go in, I guess. So
I cannot talk crap about that stadium. It is a beautiful soccer stadium. Unfortunately, it is full of people normally who are not very nice and a team that is crap and not necessarily informed, but just a crap club. But that stadium is very nice. I will not say anything bad about the stadium.
Gotta admit it. Yeah, gotta admit it.
I will say that I'm glad we got the job done. But again, this is another window in which we did not meet the prescription of win at home, draw on the road. And I'm not saying this to be contrarian. I'm saying this because we only did this in one window this entire qualification process where we did the formula. And that was the November window when we beat Mexico and then tied Jamaica. Now, it came out in the wash in that first window when we got 5 points, which was the bare minimum. Ended up winning at Honduras, but drew at home to Canada. And I just think that still that the 4 points and the only needing to not lose 6-0 and still somehow losing 2-0, like all of it kind of summarizes how I feel about this team right now, where it's like we're getting the job done. I don't think it's very good yet. How do you feel right now about the U.S. men's national team?
I feel like they have something to prove. You've gotten back in. That was the goal. Like you said, unfortunately, not on the flashy point, not the strongest point to get in, not really limping in either. I mean, you still had some good results and some good performances.
I want to take point about that limping in thing real quick because it's weird because I don't know how much stock to take of that Costa Rica match. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the Costa Rica match was weird. Again, I go back to the Panama match. Once you get the Panama result, I mean, you're in again. You just say don't lose. But I hate to say go into a match, say, okay, guys, just don't lose. Like, that's just not my mentality. My mentality is to win, go for 3 goals, put the game away. And that just didn't seem to be it was the case, but unfortunately with some brilliant goalkeeping, it just wasn't their day.
Right.
And it was Costa Rica's day. But now the U.S. is back in it. You have the next 4 to 5 months now to just build on it and say, okay, what's our best roster?
Mm-hmm.
Which matchup is going to be best? You got the England, obviously, is going to be the most anticipated match, obviously. But that first match is also critical. If you go into the first match and you lose, you're already behind the 8 ball. You only get 3 games to progress. Right. You don't get, 4 windows of 3 games. You literally have 3 games, and every game you have to get some result. You can't lose a game, especially the first one. Losing the first 2, even worse. So I think that they're anticipating the England game, but hopefully not overlooking that first game. That's the most critical one. You get a draw. Okay, you set yourself up for England. Hopefully get a draw, sneak out a win if they're having a bad day. And then the third game, you know what you have to do. Reversely, get the first win, then you're pretty much 1 step in the door. It's just 2 points needed. And that's a little more easier to do. So that first game is critical. I think this group of players, and I'm very excited for the 2026 World Cup when it's here at home, they're looking for something to prove, and some of them are just on the cusp of their careers where they're getting to their prime or about to be in their prime. And they want to prove on the biggest stage, in the biggest lights, that I can do it. We can do it. We can go into the knockout stage. Maybe we can make a run, to the Elite 8, maybe the Final 4 as well. I hate to use basketball terms, but to get all the way to the semifinal, I mean, would be probably the biggest goal. 8 or 16 is obviously the goal. But yeah, just got to get that first game out of the way. Those 3 points starting off is so critical for how the rest of your tournament goes. You get behind the 8 ball, you're pretty much out. I mean, it's very difficult to come back from losing the first game. It's been done, but by very strong teams. There's not very many teams who, can go behind and come back with, 6 straight points or even 4 points possibly. It's very difficult to do.
Well, like you said, we have 8 months to figure this out. We have 6 friendlies, 6 matches, 4 friendlies. We'll have 2 competitive matches in CONCACAF Nations League. Greg Berhalter has pretty much said that the what month are we going to be in? June window will be the best squad he can bring in. I think you're right, though. I think you're on the point of Berhalter right now needs to figure out what his best 11 is and then what his best, 16 to 18 is, right? Who are the guys that you're actually going to rely on in matches in the World Cup? Because when you get to the World Cup, you need your best 11 to start and you need guys who contribute off the bench. But you don't, I know that the World Cup roster size is most likely going to be extended to 26, and I'm very happy for that. Great. But Berhalter needs to really focus in on who the best 18 are that he has so that he can run them in the World Cup. Because for the most part, you're not using player 26 and 25 on the roster unless something bad happens, which obviously is the reason for that expansion. I am looking forward to that. And I'm sure you are looking forward to watching and seeing how some of these guys progress in their club at the end of the season and how they go through the summer and into the start of their club seasons in the fall. Joey, thanks for joining me on this episode of Soccer for Us. Where can we follow you?
My Twitter handle is Logondo5. I'm on Facebook. I have Snapchat too as well, Logondo5. I don't really have much on my feed. It's pretty much Atlanta United or Manchester United. Obviously, occasional pictures, like you said, of my daughter. She is absolutely killing me on the soccer field. First day of practice, she said, "Daddy, it's muddy," and I'm like, "So?" She's like, "I'm gonna get dirty." And I said, "You play on the playground? Like, what's the difference?" So I'm having a blast with teaching her and coaching her, and it's been really rewarding. Refereeing a tournament this weekend, I'm refereeing every time. So, but yeah, Logondo5 on Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat too as well. I'm not pretty, so I don't take pictures for Instagram. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you again being on here. I appreciate everyone for listening to this episode of Soccer for Us. Make sure you follow the show at Soccer for Us Pod. And you can support the show at buymeacoffee.com/soccerforuspod. Again, thanks everyone for being here. I'm Bart. I'm out.